Most people talk about leadership like it's theory. I've lived it in the mud, the chaos, and the moments nobody writes about. This show is the truth, raw, unfiltered, and built for leaders who actually give a damn. If you're ready to grow, ready to own your own story, and ready to lead from the front, you're in the right place. Speak up, show up, lead. Let's get into it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Speak Up, Show Up, Lead Leadership Live Edition. And I'm here with my co-host for this show, Chris. And today we're going to talk about some cool stuff. But before we get started, don't forget to go to Amazon.com and pick up your copy of Speak Up, Show Up, Lead, the book. And I'm not going to go too deep into that. I talk about it every show. But Chris, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good, JJ. How are you?
Doing good. It feels like we just had this conversation, but we always do it as soon as we go live as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, man, this is going to be a good one. I mean, talking about how you bring vision into reality, I think a lot of people struggle with that. They want things and they would like to have things, but they don't understand how to, turn that into a vision, how important vision is, and then how to turn that into strategy, and then how to turn that into results. And though we kind of touched on that with our reinvention stuff at the beginning of the year, we didn't really go into depth on how important vision is to your execution. So I think this is going to be a really good call.
Yeah, I agree. And there is something about just having the clarity of your vision to help establish your goals, right? If we have talked before about if you don't know where you're going, it's going to be really difficult to know when you've gotten there, if you've gotten past it, or if you're just like a few steps away from getting there. So having that kind of clarity is super important. And yeah, the vision part of it, people think vision as being visual, which there's a part of it that's visual, but the other part of it is also mental. It's inspirational. Like there are a whole lot of layers to what your vision is. And then you kind of, determine how to get there through your strategy and your execution.
Right. Yeah. Well, and let's talk about that clarity piece because that's important. There's some things that you have to do to make sure you're super clear. I mean, if you haven't been there or anything like that, for example, say you want to have, well, you and I have done it. So I'll say coaching business. Mm-hmm. Well, if you've never had a business before, that's one complexity. But if you've never had a coaching business before, especially one that likely these days will operate mostly online, even though if you're lucky enough to get a local customer, that would be absolutely wonderful. But I've been trying to do that for a while, and I've had onesies and twosies, but that's about it. You talk to people who have done it. You figure out what it took to get there, and you use that. And though you don't have to follow their exact path, because no two paths are exactly the same, you have to understand what that path looks like for other people so that you can envision what that's going to look like for your own journey. And I think that's a lot of things that's one of those things that people don't really take the time to do. Kind of like when my daughter was going to college, we had this conversation with her. She's like, well, I don't really know what I want to do, but I'd like to do something like this. And I said, well, my wife and I talked, have you ever talked to anybody in that field? Did you ask them how they got to where they are? If that's something that you even want to do. I mean, because at the end of the day, that job might suck. You might want to shadow somebody for a couple of days. I mean, just because it looks cool on TV or it sounds cool because you read it on paper doesn't mean it's always great when you go through it. But if you really do enjoy it after all of those things, and knock your socks off, go do what you got to do. But I think that's an important part of it is to have that clarity, to know what that journey looks like and how it's going to feel when you get there.
Yeah, the homework is important because you don't want to put in all of your time and effort into going after something and then realizing that, like, man, this really isn't what I wanted to go for. Some things are like that, and other things aren't. Like that's again, part of the balance of life, right? Like maybe part of your vision is, hey, I'm gonna drop 20 pounds. I'm gonna get shredded. Like, okay, you look around and you see people like that, and then you do the homework and you figure out, I got to go to the gym, I got to watch what I eat, I got to lift weights, I got to move my body, right? Yeah, it's going to take work, it's going to take time, but that's not as deep as kind of a career choice or choosing how to spend 4 years of your life in college preparing for something, and then you're like, oh shit,
Yeah.
I really don't want to do this.
Oh man, that's so true. But even think about that. Sometimes their journey, I mean, what if you talk to somebody who's 10 years, 10, 15, 20 years younger than you are? Their journey is not going to be the same as yours if you're 40, 50 years old or something like that. I mean, or even older than that, because our bodies process everything just a little bit. I'm not going to go into how much more slowly things process as we start to age a little bit, but I would say that the recovery, the results, all of those things just are so much slower. So you definitely have to talk to people that are in your shoes still, because expectation management is important. You have to know that the journey is that there's positive results to be seen, but the journey could still suck all the way until you get to those results.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. So clarity is super important. I think that's an important one, and you got to do the homework. It could take a few days. It could take a few months. It just all depends. And if you're unclear on what your end state looks like for whatever your goal is, still after you've done the homework, then dig into it a little bit more. I mean, gosh, the last thing you want to do when you get into something is not understand how to plan for it. And right. I mean, you can fly by the seat of your pants, but that makes things move even more slowly. So just make sure you're doing your due diligence. And that's what clarity is all about.
Absolutely. And, the other thing too that I'll say is that as you're planning and you're getting ready to do something, there's this balance between action and, being purposeful.
Well,
now that was weird.
I know. There's that balance between action and put me back in the call.
All right.
But that's what you were saying. Well, I know that was weird. No, yeah. But you were saying that there is a balance between action and
there's a balance between action and being decisive about what you're going to do versus being impulsive. You also hear that a lot of times. People are like, oh yeah, this is like flavor of the week and I'm going to go do this. And they're not thinking it out. And you can be fast, right? You can make fast decisions based on your research, based on your homework that are not necessarily impulsive, but it's a very fine line.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you take action, you're kind of pointed in the right direction. So that's the other thing too, when you're setting your goals and I know that we went through a pretty kind of in detail series before this one about setting goals and how to be purposeful about it. And that's what you want. And now it's time for action because you're anchored in something. Yeah. So I guess that was a long way of saying, don't just start going without knowing where you're going to go. And
that's right.
And why you're taking those actions.
That's right. But, also keep in mind, and we talked about this before too, that it's going to get to a point where you have to make the decision to move because as comfortable it is to be in that planning stage and to find out as much as you can about it, you can easily get super comfortable there and then never take action. And I think that that's kind of part of what this call is all about, is to reemphasize that when it's time to take action, it's not going to be perfect. You just need to have a baseline. It's going to be messy once you start the execution. And we always talk about that. Mm-hmm. Just know that you have to give yourself the grace and the permission to go out there and make mistakes and reevaluate your plan and constantly change it. That initial plan to get moving is your opportunity to go out there and fail forward, which I didn't actually learn until I started talking to you, and make mistakes so that you can do things maybe even better than some of the people that you talk to.
Yep. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with making a mistake. As long as you learn from it, right? Yep. That's the caveat. You've got to learn from your mistakes. You can't keep making the same ones over and over again. But that's also the result of movement and, building up that momentum. So, yeah, it's nice and theoretical to be in your planning meetings and kicking around all the different scenarios. But at the end of the day, you've got to put one foot in front of the other and just go.
That's right.
And that's where the iteration comes in. And to be honest, the iteration part to me is just as fun because you're figuring it out while you go to an extent. You're like, okay, my end goal is over there and I'm going to start moving. Now, I didn't account for this pothole that I'm coming up against. I didn't account for X. I didn't account for Y. But now that's what keeps you engaged. That's something too that I want to point out to people. Once you start moving without the perfect plan, and by the way, there is no perfect plan for anything, but once you start going, you are going to find roadblocks. You're going to find things that you need to learn along the way. That's what makes the journey fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's what keeps you sharp because it's like, oh, I got to problem solve here. I got to come up with a different route. I've got to hang hard left and then jog right a little bit. And that's fine. Embrace those things. I see a lot of people get kind of sucked into this mindset of like, oh man, another roadblock. Dude, just embrace them and just figure out how to overcome them, right? It's either over it, around it, or through it. But how do you get to the other side? And you can't plan those things in advance.
No.
You just can't. It's simple as that.
No. As a matter of fact, something so simple. So when I was in the military, I served for a long time, and I wanted for a lot of years to become a warrant officer, which I actually did finally end up doing. And finally I got to the point where I got a couple recommendations. I finally got the courage to go through the process of filling out that multi-page resume and application and all the nonsense. And everyone else made it seem like, oh, I'm not going to do that because that is really, really hard to get that process done. And when it got done, it was not hard. But I submitted it, and a couple months later, I got a notification back that said I didn't get accepted. I could have accepted that and moved on and stayed in my current position, but I had to learn from that. So I couldn't accept that as my answer. So I picked up the phone and I called the people that reviewed that application, which a lot of people, from what my understanding, didn't do. And I asked them, I'm like, was it something that maybe I was missing? Was there a school? Was there an assignment that I should have that is keeping me from moving forward? And oh my gosh, you'll never believe it, Chris, but I got denied my first application because there was a clerical error on one of the pages of my application. I looked at that thing so much, I never saw it. And so I resubmitted it, and boom, there it was. But it's just interesting how many people fly by the seat of their pants with things, and then they have a little road bump, and they're like, well, that sucks. Life is really hard. I'm super busy. I don't have time to worry about that. I'll just, keep on doing everything else that I'm doing. That is what Chris is talking about when he's talking about these roadblocks. And though I'm not trying to toot my own horn saying that I won on that application process, that's a good example of why you learn instead of quit. And then I did not resubmit my application. I did. So whatever you're working on, when that roadblock hits, because you're going to have one, whether it's a small one or a catastrophic one, you're going to have one. And if you just let that kick you in the head, and if you stay down and you take it, well, you do one thing like you do everything. And I don't think you want to be characterized that way. So make sure you get back up and figure out what you did wrong and try it again. And I mean, it's the same thing as getting bullied in school. Are you going to let that person keep bullying you? Or are you going to figure out how to, I say the mental defeat for a bully is harder than the physical defeat. So how are you going to make sure that doesn't keep on happening? You just got to make sure you figure out how to overcome these obstacles. And they can be, I've never found an obstacle so far that it can't be overcome. And you're right. Sometimes you have to go around it, over it. I really love punching through obstacles though, because that just makes me feel like you ain't nothing. But, right. But you know that all obstacles can be overcome if you do it the right way. And sometimes you take an alternate route, but that doesn't mean you won't still get to the same place.
That's right. But you know, let's bring it back for a second and talk about how to figure out where you're going, right? Like we did talk about planning and hey, what's your ideal leadership self? That's how we kicked off this year. But now we're talking about the execution, right? You've got your flag planted in the ground, or at least, you know, mentally planted in the ground. Maybe you've done a vision board, right? Maybe you've written out your goals. I sure as hell hope that you've written out your goals, because, you know, if they're not written, the chances of you actually going and achieving them are a lot smaller. So now that we've done this, how do we actually get there, right? What are the steps that you need to do? I'll start off, right?
Please.
I'm a huge fan of the reverse engineering technique of things. Okay, I want to be here. Let's say I want to keep it simple. I want to build a new shed. All right, I know what my shed is going to look like. You know, I've got my plans drawn up and I've got my approvals for my permit. Awesome. Now what's next? Well, now I need to determine how much lumber I need. I need to go buy my lumber. I need to maybe set up some help with friends, and what weekends are they available to help me build this shed, right? You just kind of start unpacking everything that goes into it. And then again, you're going to find things that you forgot, like, oh crap, I forgot a box of screws when I was making my materials list. Now I got to go back to Home Depot. You know, those are your roadblocks. And you just, all right, maybe you take that time while you're heading over to Home Depot and stop and get a cup of coffee as well, and like kill two birds with one stone.
You're in good company, sir.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. And when you're making that plan, you know, again, he's bringing up another example where, you know, that morning where he invited all of his friends over could have felt like a total waste of time, because you can't start putting together your shed without the screws. But if you look at the opportunity to all go out for a cup of coffee on the way to the store real quick, well, then those guys that you invited over actually aren't going to feel nearly as used. They're going to be like, oh, well, we're going to take a break before we get started this morning. Not a big deal at all. Now, you might not have them for the whole day. You'll probably still have them for the same amount of time, but you guys got an opportunity to hang out together. So it's not just, when it comes time for execution, it's not just the setbacks. It's also how you think of those setbacks. Because if you, this is a big part of overcoming adversity is finding the opportunity in everything that's happening in your life, because life can suck, or life can actually be great, and you can just kind of roll with the punches, and you can still get everything done. It might take a little bit longer, but you can enjoy the stupid stuff. We called it in the military embracing the suck. That's because when things suck the worst, you got to have a little bit of fun with it. Otherwise, it's just going to suck even more. And that's another great thing that you brought up there. But when you have to take that trip to go to the store, now is another opportunity where you can take all of those guys that you am I missing?
Yes.
And figure that out. Re-engineer that plan. Make sure there's no holes in it, because Lord knows you don't want to take another trip to the store. So
that's right.
But that's, I mean, again, it's an opportunity. And by the way, when you're planning things all inside your own head, you're going to miss things. It's absolutely going to happen. So use that time to, you won't always have friends involved with you when you're doing things, or other people involved when you're doing things. You should get a second set of eyes on any plan that you develop, but you don't always have that opportunity.
Yeah.
But again, silver lining, don't quit. Figure out another way to move around it and make it happen.
That's right. What do they say in the Marine Corps?
Oh gosh.
Improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Okay, good. They say a lot of things in the Marine Corps. Some of them aren't necessarily appropriate for the internet.
Do they call the purple crayons grape crayons?
Oh, it depends on the flavor of the week, my friend. I don't really know. If you buy a box of 100 and they're all a different color, you should see them get excited. I'm just kidding. I'm really just kidding. For all you Marines that are in my group, in my audience out there, nothing but love, my friends.
We love you, devil dogs.
We love you guys. That's right. That's right. Even though the Army's better, hooah.
Yeah, improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
That's what you've got to do sometimes along the way.
Yep.
But understanding too, as you're planning out what your steps are, right? These are the steps I need to take, and I'm moving. Having milestones along the way to be able to measure your progress.
Mm-hmm.
Super helpful in a couple different ways. Number one, it's that old adage of, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yep.
So you don't get consumed with the overall big picture and the goal. You have to keep the goal in mind, but really what your immediate goal is getting to that next milestone. And yes, so it's like, okay, now I'm going to get here. Awesome. Now I need to go here, right? It's the little steps along the way that all add up to achieving the big thing. So your milestones, they help you to gauge your performance. They give you that checkpoint of, okay, how are things going? Can I step it up? Can I speed it up a little bit? What did I learn along the way from last milestone to now? But it just helps you to break up the journey and have something a little sooner in the future to focus on, because that's right. You're focusing on like one day, like just get me through this day, get me through tomorrow. And it takes the potential overwhelm of a big goal out of it. And it just focuses you on the action of, this is where I need to get to next. Bottom line, hard stop.
Yeah, I agree. And there's nothing wrong with putting those milestones together. Sometimes we had in the description for this 30, 60, 90. Sometimes it's only 30, sometimes it's 120, but making sure you have those milestones written out. And actually something that I like to do in those milestones, and this is just a suggestion for everybody, is I do add in there dates for reevaluation of the plan. I think that's really, really important before the execution, because if I've already, before the final executions, we'll use the shed as an example, because that's a really, really good one. You might only plan for a couple weeks to build a shed, and Home Depot and Lowe's make it really easy, because you can just go in there and say, this is how big I want my shed to be. And they'll be like, hey, this is all the materials that you need to buy. Do you want to buy them now and we can deliver them to your house next week? But
right,
that that doesn't mean that that the planning process isn't still good. You can go, but if you miss that step and you try to do it all yourself and you find out later that you could have done that, that's a whole other story. But let's just say that you start the process. Well, now you got to go out and figure out where your shed's going to be in your yard, all these things. If you intentionally map all that stuff out and you do it when you say you're going to do it, make sure that you're not just flopping all over the map and then not writing down what you did and not writing down the dimensions and then, oh crap, last week I was supposed to do this and I didn't do that. Did I do it? I can't remember. Hey honey, did I do that thing I was supposed to do on my milestones? That make sure you're not just writing those milestones out.
Yeah.
But you're actually tracking your progress to those milestones. That's why I add that specific milestone of reevaluating everything, because I don't know, I'm getting older. I forget half of what I do every day anyway. So if I'm not writing down all the stuff that I do, then at the end of the day, I'm going to be like, okay, I remember this, and I remember this. But if it's not on my worksheet that I put together for myself, then I'm probably going to do half of it again.
Yeah.
So make sure you're tracking your progress through all of those things. And I like having a visual representation, and I actually like having it on a whiteboard or a piece of paper. How you track your progress is really up to you, but make sure you're keeping track of all that stuff, because maybe you wouldn't have forgotten the screws if you would have put, what materials do I need specifically. If you would have put that identification process on your milestones. Well, yeah. I've done it before where I'm like, okay, we've got to figure out materials. And I just go to the store and I buy things and I get it home and I start working on my project. And I'm like, dang it. There's a drill bit that I needed and it didn't come in the screws. Now I got to go drive 30 minutes back to the store. So just make sure you're tracking that stuff, and the likelihood that you start missing these major things that cause you to have to start over from the beginning, it's going to be less likely. And I kind of went all over the map, but make sure you're taking that intentional time to reevaluate your plan and your milestones.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a big list maker, and maybe, it extends to all areas, but like when I go to the store, versus when my wife goes to the store, two different experiences, right? I've got a mission.
Careful.
This is my list. This is where I'm going to attack, going to get in, get out, and on with my day. My wife's like, let's go up and down every aisle, and we might need this, and maybe we need that. And I'm like,
I got to read the package. Let's not go into all that. Our wives are absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes. I agree. I like to go in there and get in and get out. That's why having that list is super important. And it's not just a list of stuff to go buy for a project. I like having a list, like say for my work day. I do the same thing. I call it my battle rhythm. The day before I go and do things, I make my list out for what's going to happen the next day. The things that I think are going to be important to move the needle in everything I got going on. I did it when I worked for the military. I did it when I worked as a safety manager. I did it when I worked as a transportation manager in the civilian. I do it for my business now. And then every morning I look at that and I'm like, well, some of that is stupid. I don't know why I even wanted to do that today, because that doesn't move the needle at all. And so I focus on what I do think is important. And, it's the same thing. When you're working on when you're working on vision and milestones and planning execution, that all of that stuff is really, really important, because what you like one day is not going to be the same the next.
Absolutely. Yep.
So now let's talk about the actual execution, I guess, because if we're going over the planning again, we went over what it looks like to get to that end state. What are some things, because the next thing we talked about were behaviors, and I think part of behaviors, and we tapped on it a little bit, it's easy to say that eventually you just got to take action, but how do you figure out, Chris, how to get to that point of vision to planning to action? What's something that works for you?
To just take action?
to just, I mean, now it's really, you get really, really comfortable in that planning stage, because guess what? You don't actually have to spend the money. You don't actually have to take the time off work to do the thing. You don't actually have to do it. And it may be something that you really, really want. And oh my gosh, if I don't do it right, then I must be a complete failure. So taking that action is really, really hard. What are some strategies that you have when something is important for you to do and you got to do it, but it's taxing?
Yeah. Dude, there's so many. So number one, I psych myself up and I'm like, gotta move. Like, just get off the couch, put one foot in front of the other and get going. Sometimes I will rely on sharing with others and asking to be held accountable. I do that with other people too. Like, hey, you know what? You got a big goal. You need to start moving. I'm happy to hold you accountable and make sure that you're doing what you need to do. That can be a good motivator for a lot of people, because it's that pressure of not letting someone else down that could be the motivator. I will sometimes say, if I don't get these certain things done, it's a carrot and stick. All right, if I do get these certain things done, maybe I'm grabbing an ice cream cone. If I don't get certain things done, then I've got to take something off of the list.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like, but I look for ways to either reward or deny, and that is a good mental motivator to start moving. But at the end of the day, you have to just be so firm in your belief that if I don't do this, then the goal's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So let's put our shoes on. That's step number one. All right, awesome. Shoes are on. Grab the car keys. Let's get out of the house. Let's move. And you can figure out those small steps for any type of goal. All right, it's turning on the computer, firing up my word program, and starting to type.
Well, let's say
my research, whatever.
Let's say it's that 30, 60, 90. And you have milestones within. One thing that a lot of people make mistakes on with this process is they don't put dates on there. And that's important. And actually those dates, if you treat your planning calendar the right way, those dates are accountability marks.
Yes.
And so I guess I was trying to keep with the process we already had. I was bouncing back and forth with you. I apologize. I should have asked the question more specifically, but with that, making sure that you hold yourself accountable, and, you might not be motivated that day, but you might be motivated that day. Who knows? But making sure that you have the discipline to actually do those things on the day that you have planned out that you're going to do those things. And you might do more than one thing. You might even do something that you had to do at your 60-day marker on day 30. Who knows? But if the opportunity presents itself, don't kick a gift horse in the mouth. It might be a good thing for that stuff to happen. But on the days that you say you're going to do things, don't say I'll do that next week. I don't think right now is a good time. No. If you set dates and you're not keeping to your own plan, if you're not holding yourself accountable, then how many other areas of your life is that going to bleed into? You got to hold yourself accountable when you make a plan. That's just the way it goes. Especially if you have, my goodness, if you have kids in your household and you're supposed to be the head of the household, if you can't even hold yourself accountable, how are you supposed to hold your kids accountable? You're going to get mad at them for not doing the dishes, but you can't go and file your LLC on day 5. What the heck is really going on here?
Yeah. No, you're right. You can't be a hypocrite and hold other people accountable if you're not holding yourself accountable.
Correct.
But the tools of writing down the dates, 100% agree with that. You got to have your dates. use some kind of project board. Maybe it's Microsoft Project, maybe it's Trello. Use something, right? There are plenty of tools out there that can integrate with your calendar, that can help you to know on this date, this needs to be done, which means that 5 days before that, this needs to be done. Use freaking AI. Like, dude, I'm telling you, man, like you set it out. Hey, this is my goal. These are my milestones that I've identified, right? These are the points along the way. Now, help me to come up with all of the steps that need to be thought of right now, understanding that things are going to happen, and help me map it out. Help me create a workflow in Trello. It'll freaking do that. Like, leverage the robots.
Leverage the robots. That's true. Whatever tools you have available.
That's right.
I mean, at the end of the day, you got to do something that works for you. But I like, even if you're using some digital tool, I still think that your idea at the beginning of the call to write everything down, that'll help you remember it a little bit more. There's something to writing things down to help you remember it. But we're past our normal time here. Chris, do you have any closing comments for the day? I didn't realize it until you started talking, because when I'm running my mouth, apparently I go on forever. I'm not really sure what's going on here.
So my closing comments for the day are just, it's important to start moving. It's important to know what your goal is. Number one, know where you're going. Number two, do it in small chunks and just get moving. Learn along the way. You're going to have roadblocks. You're going to have speed bumps. You're going to have detours along the way. Accept that and make that part of the process. Embrace that part of the process so that it keeps it fun. It keeps you sharp. You're thinking about it along the way, and you're just not on cruise control.
Yeah. Yeah. And the only thing I would add to that, make sure you really understand what you're getting yourself into. I mean, there are some things like, obviously getting fit, like we talked about earlier, that's a non-negotiable. You should be doing that to a certain extent, no matter what, just to keep yourself moving. I mean, my goodness, that some people don't like the idea of exercise, but my good, you're going to live a lot longer and feel better while you're doing it. Your quality of life is going to be awesome. But so that's a non-negotiable. But all these other things that you could be doing, building a shed, obviously that's optional, unless you want your wife to keep screaming at you about all that extra space you need at the house or whatever the case may be. But just make sure that if you're moving forward with something big and you're changing things, because we talked about reinvention earlier this year, that you're taking the time to do your due diligence and that you're completely clear about what that change is going to be like, so that when you plan that out, not only can you understand what those milestones are, but you can, this is how it is for me. And I don't know how it is for you, Chris, but I can close my eyes and actually picture what it's going to be like at each one of those milestones. And it's going to make it a lot easier, because it's not like I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I'm doing things that actually seem like they make sense. They don't make sense, you're less likely to do it. That's my closing comment for all of this. Vision, clarity, execution, I think they're all important, and you just got to make sure you're keeping yourself accountable all the way across the board.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for watching again, who's been in here this whole time. If you're a regular watcher, please comment and participate in the conversation. We like that. That is something that's been, and we've had some people that are really, really engaged during our and that takes the conversations into some places that maybe we wouldn't have necessarily expected before we started. But that's what we want. We're doing this for y'all. So just remember that. But don't forget to like it, subscribe to it wherever you are, so you get notifications that these things are coming up. But also let us know what you want to hear about. I mean, Chris and I, we got some different perspectives on leadership. That's why we started this. I was a lifelong military guy. Chris has been in, good Lord, every kind of business type stuff that's been out there for his whole life. And he's got a myriad of experience as well, leading other people. We want to bring what we have to you, and that's why we're doing this podcast. So let us know what you want us to talk about. Otherwise, we will see you all next time. Thank you for watching. 2
All
weeks.
Right. Have a good day. Go crush it.
Crush it.